2. Well, give me a second. I'm going to tell you when it's live.
Hey, Steve, start the
Yeah.
or start the streaming.
It's live.
Is it live right now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is now. It's live.
Okay, so I want to welcome everybody to the first fireside chat for the General Grand Council, and like I said, I want to make this as informal as possible. I welcome any questions. I do ask that people try to be as respectful of one another as people are talking. Try to keep yourself on mute. If you do want to talk, why don't you click the raised hand button, and that way we know you have something that you want to say, and we can keep things a little organized. Our hosts for the meeting are Steve Balke, James McNeely, and John Green, who will help facilitate things for us. But you know, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. One of the reasons why I'm holding this type of a forum is to, again, allow the companions to get to know one another across the world. Currently, the General Grand Council spans 18 time zones. We go from Europe, Romania, Africa, as far which direction east as Madagascar, and then for us we go as far west as Taiwan, Philippines, Japan. So there's a lot of time zones that this covers, which is one of the reasons why we chose this time. It's really early in Asia and really late in Europe, so hopefully people will be able to join us and share in the communications. I do, as part of my theme or my goals for the triennial this year, is to increase transparency. And this is one of the ways that I want to accomplish that transparency, is to allow all of the companions to have direct access to us in these forums, so that they can ask us questions that may or may not have been filtered down through the organization, or if they want to just ask a general question about cryptic masonry. We've got a lot of really bright people on the call right now that have a lot of experience and knowledge in cryptic masonry, and I'm sure that they would all be more than happy to share their perspectives on different aspects of our craft. And it also gives us an opportunity to learn the perspectives of others, particularly outside of the US, who may have a different take than what we have traditionally seen as a way of interpreting the degrees. 1 second. Okay, and Lopaka got the link, so hopefully he'll be in here soon. So while we're waiting for that, does anybody have any questions on anything I've said so far? I do ask that everybody conduct themselves as good Masons, be respectful of each other's opinions, be respectful of everybody's speaking time, and as I said before, try to stay on mute as much as possible, so that particularly when someone is actually given a talk, that way they can get their material out without having to deal with interruptions or distractions. So, Lopaka, are you here yet?
He is not,
Okay,
but I am in communication with him, so we're
okay,
good.
good. Bill Lott, welcome. How are you, sir? Well, hi.
Very good, Monty. I'm here and good.
Outstanding. Will Highsmith.
Most puissant, we've got a question from John Miller, if you want to.
Go ahead, John.
Hands up.
Good afternoon. This is just a statement that General Grandmaster, I think that this is a fantastic idea. Hopefully the companions will take advantage of it and ask some questions, whether it be of you, of Bill, Tom Taylor, or Stephen Balke. Hint, 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 hint.
And not John Miller, right?
I just wanted to start it off by saying I think it's great, a great idea, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, John. And I do want to thank Steve and James and John for helping set this up and coordinating it. Like to also recognize most puissant David Grindle, our junior past General Grand Master. Welcome, David. And for those that do not know, G. Thomas Taylor is our General Grand Principal Conductor of the Work. He was just installed at the Triennial on the 26th of September. And then William Snyder, who is our Deputy General Grand Master, who also was installed on the 26th. Mark McGee, welcome. Mark Irwin.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine.
Thank you for coming tonight. And while we're waiting, does anybody have any questions? Might be
Wow. There's never been a group of Masons so quiet, ever.
they may be looking for the unmute button like a lot of us tend to do on these meetings.
I was just getting ready to say that might be my fault that it's such a quiet room right now.
Hey, James, did I understand you issued a challenge here recently? Would you like to talk about that?
Which one are you referring to, Tom? Are you referring to what's under my hat?
No. Someone said you issued a challenge to all the deputy masters.
Oh, you're talking about the conversation at the North Central Department or Regional Conference, yes, on Friday. So what I did was I issued a challenge to all of the deputy grandmasters to make a $150 donation to CMMRF in token of preparing for our year in the Grand East next year, or as soon as we are installed. Tom, is that the one you were referring to?
Yes, it was. I was sort of hoping that would generate some conversation.
I was hoping so too. So on Friday during the North Central Regional Conference, the regional deputy, between charging $10 a head to attend for CMMRF. With the challenges that were issued for the PCWs and other various companions in attendance, it almost raised about $1,000 for the foundation just on Friday alone. So it was a fun discussion, and I would like to think that it was worthwhile for CMMRF. So I would love to see as many deputy grandmasters join me in that $150 mark.
General Grandmaster, I'd like to introduce somebody to you.
Please.
Companion Brian Ellis, who has been in council for almost a year or a little over a year.
I just
He
saw,
did his degrees last December.
congratulations and welcome, Companion Brian.
In the big woods of Maine.
What jurisdiction
you.
are you in?
Wilton. It's the Wilton, Maine is my number 14. It's a Jurafem chapter. I can't say it right.
Where in Maine is that at, Brian?
The if you know Portland, Maine, if you're familiar with Portland, I'm about an hour north of there.
So you're up in the woods.
I'm in the woods, yes. Yeah.
Welcome.
General Grandmaster, housekeeping question.
Absolutely.
Could whoever is from 321-652-6454, please state your name? Unless you just got muted.
No, that is, I'm trying to remember now.
I did not mute him.
I guess he bugged out.
No, I'm trying to remember who that was.
I just signed on from Florida. Just got on to Zoom. Thank you.
I think that was Dale on the 321.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was gonna say
General Grandmaster, I might encourage Reed Fanning to enlighten us about the differences in their grand line, because he just gave us an interesting thing. And the reason I'm doing this is because the grand lines in every jurisdiction are actually different, aren't they? Right, Puissant Deputy Grand Master James McNeely.
yeah, that is very true. In fact, when I saw Reed's text, I was thinking the exact same thing. But yes, it is a wonderful thing to see the differences within our craft, especially when you come from the oldest Grand Council of Royal and Select Masters in the world, to see what other Grand Councils have done to make changes within our craft. So I'd love to hear Reed.
Yeah, you beat me to the question, Steve.
Well, I'll just restate what I put in the chat, that Utah doesn't have a deputy grandmaster. We do, however, have a junior and senior steward in the grand line, which most jurisdictions only have a steward, not a junior and senior steward.
So Reed,
Was there
Yes.
any reason why you guys chose to go that way?
Oh, that happened way before my time.
So where do the junior and senior stewards sit? What are their stations?
You know, that's a good question. I don't remember where I was sitting. I think I was sitting right across from, we sit right across from each other. So when I was in that position anyway, the only time we're really sitting in those chairs is during grand sessions. And it usually changes depending on which room we're in.
So Brian asked a question about is the degree work the same over the world? The short answer to that, Brian, is no, there are variations. Steve, you want to talk a little bit more about that in depth?
I would, General Grandmaster, and I will as soon as you tell me it's an appropriate time, but our speaker is here.
Welcome, Lopaka. Aloha, sir. Lopaka, you there? The mini hoonies may be playing with his sound. Lopaka, can you hear me? This is almost there.
Steve, where'd you throw him?
I didn't. It's his first name is Robert. So
Right,
you're
no, I
looking
know.
and I think he's probably got an earbud thing going on. There he is. We can see him now. Can you hear us, Lopaka? He can hear us, but he's muted. Your speakers aren't working.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go.
Lopaka.
Aloha.
How are you,
Got
sir?
some
Okay.
technical Menehune action going here.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So Lopaka, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to give your talk tonight. I want to thank you for taking the time and giving us some kukua and helping us out here. So with that, I'll let you take it away.
All right, thank you very much. So this is a story from a daughter of a Prince Hall Mason from back in 1962, I believe. And there's a condominium here. It's 37 stories. It's called the Contessa. And it's built over an old church graveyard that at one time in our ancient history belonged to a kahuna who kind of went crazy. He was thirsty for power. And a kahuna from another island told him, if you can go back to where you come from and kill your favorite child, the path to your house of power will be made that much more shorter. And so he went back to this place that's here in Honolulu and took his youngest favorite child, and in front of his home was a pond. And they walked into the pond and he held the sun's head underwater, and then sand appeared in place of the pond. And the kahuna had a bit of trouble getting himself out of the sand and then his son. And he waited and he waited and nothing happened. He got on the canoe, sailed back to the island of Kauai, found that same kahuna, and said, I did everything as you commanded, and nothing happened. And the first thing the kahuna from Kauai tells him is, when you go to your home in Honolulu, how do you get there? He said, well, there's a large pond in front of my house, so normally we have to go around the pond. And so You went into the pond, held your favorite son's head underwater, and then the moment he passed away, sand appeared in place of the pond. Is that what happened? And the kahuna from Honolulu said, that's exactly what happened. And so that kahuna from Kauai said, well, your son passed away, sand appeared in place of the pond. And now you no longer have to go around the pond to your home. You can go directly across. And that's the path to your power. The kahuna from Honolulu didn't understand that. And he went mad, insane. And when he got back to his house here, he got rid of his parents, the rest of his children, his servants. And in a last act of insanity, they said he placed his hand on this unusually shaped stone and imbued all of his mana and his madness into it. So his mana is his spiritual essence. Years and years later, in 1847, they build an old church on that same location. And up until 1962, that's been known as the church on the hill. And so during the late 50s, early 60s, the Prince Hall Masons here in Hawaii were having a hard time finding a permanent lodge. And so one of the last places they used in the early 60s was this old church. And so a daughter of one of the Prince Hall Masons says she had to go to that meeting and stay in a separate room by herself until the meetings were over. And her mother also happened to be a member of the Eastern Star. So they had their own separate room. And so she said every night when she would go there and the lodge meetings were going on, she'd play by herself in this room. And every night outside this window, she saw the face of this Hawaiian man, wild hair, full beard, the classic features. And he keeps pointing to the window like this. And every night she looks at him and she says, he wants her to let him in. He keeps pointing to the window. And he keeps saying, wants her to open it. That's her reply. And she says, finally, one night, when she looks out the window and sees him again, he doesn't point, he doesn't make this gesture. He just takes his finger, presses it into the screen on the window, and slowly, slowly rubs it across the screen like this. As he's doing that, she notices the hook that's holding the screen to the windowsill is slowly, slowly coming undone. He pulls back the screen. He starts to climb in, and she screams bloody murder, top of her lungs. The Eastern Star room empties out. The lodge room empties out. Everybody comes into that bedroom, that room she's playing in, and she tells them, there's been a Hawaiian man with wild hair, a full beard every night, asking me to let him in. I always said no, but tonight he tried to climb in. Everyone looks at her, the woman tells me, and tells her, it's your imagination. There's no way that could have happened. What she didn't know was that her father, in those Prince Hall Lodge meetings, and the brothers were having the same problem. When they were having degrees, and they would look up into this window that was high above in that room, they'd see that same face, that same Hawaiian man with the wild hair and the full beard looking in to their lodge meetings. And so they'd go outside and chase him away, but there was no one there. And it happened a lot. And so the last time it happened, when they were doing a third degree, I understand, and the face of that Hawaiian man is looking in the window, peering down at them. They all go outside, and again, they can't find him. But finally, someone says, has anyone noticed that the window he looks in from and the window your daughter claims to see him from are 9 feet off the ground? And look, there's no footholds, no handholds, no way he could have climbed up there. But it's 9 feet off the ground. Someone jokes, well, maybe that guy's 9, 10 feet tall. In the late 60s, the church where the Prince Hall meetings happen falls into disrepair, and they break it down, and they repatriate some of the bodies to another church in downtown Honolulu. The rest, they leave. A gentleman who was on one of my ghost tours was one of the guys who helped dig for the area where the swimming pool is now at this building called the Contessa. And the story goes, which everybody knows, when they're digging for that swimming pool, they uncover what we call a Senate casket, a casket made of woven coconut fiber. And when the workers open the casket, there's a skeleton in it. And they measure it, and it's 9 feet. Some of the guys want to take the skeleton to the Bishop Museum for money, but others insist that they call on a Hawaiian priest, a kahu, who comes and looks at the skeleton and has them measure it again. And sure enough, it's exactly 9 feet tall. And then he tells them, put him back, close the casket, bury him, leave him there. Don't do anything else. And they ask the Hawaiian priest why, and he says, look, his hair is still growing. His fingernails are still growing. These are the bones of a very powerful kahuna, a wizard. Put him back. That old Prince Hall Mason was my ex-father-in-law. And so when I went back and told him all these stories, and he wouldn't tell me anything until I became a master mason, and told him all these stories about the security guard who says that people illegally climb over the wall of that swimming pool after it's closed at 10 to go swim. And they'll be swimming like this, and they'll notice someone swimming right underneath them, staring at them. Or they'll try to get out of the swimming pool, and two hands will grab them and pull them under, just right under the surface of the water. Just when it feels like they're going to run out of air and drown, the hands let them go. So I told him about this, my ex-father-in-law, former past master of Cosmopolitan Lodge. And he says, I'm not surprised at all. He said, we saw his face, the window's 9 feet off the ground, nowhere, know how to climb. He said, but that's not the only thing that happened. He said, what scared us is we be in the middle of degrees that are important. And we'd look up and we'd see this guy standing in the corner of the room. Or during the obligations at the altar, we'd hear a voice chanting something in Hawaiian, either in the corner of the room or somewhere in the space above us in the rafters. When we found out that they were going to level the church, we were more than glad to get out of there. And where did they end up? An old art museum across from our palace. And so we're all master masons, and I know I can share this with you. The room that Cosmopolitan had before they found their permanent space out at Schofield was on the 3rd floor of the old art museum. And one of their methods when you become a 3rd degree mason, instead of being buried at the altar, they threw the guy out the 3rd story window, tossed him right out. And so I asked my ex-father-in-law, I said, well, if you toss him out the window and, he dies, what's the point of, getting the degree? He says, well, the youngest, strongest guys are waiting on the bottom with a fireman's net. But he said on some occasions, some guys get too carried away and they throw the guy out too far, and there's an accident. Or sometimes the young guys who are supposed to be there on the bottom holding the fireman's net don't get there in time. And that story made sense to me because my friends who are police officers tell me every now and again, about midnight, they get a phone call. Someone walking by the old museum sees a person either being tossed out a 3rd story window or it looks like they're jumping. But when they arrive, no pun intended, there's no body. Yeah, there's no body. Thanks for letting me share these Masonic stories with you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lopaka. Can you kind of briefly talk about the relationship between Masonry and the Hawaiian culture that you've seen, maybe a little bit about the history of Iolani Palace. I think people would find that interesting. To the best of my knowledge, Kalakaua was a illustrious master of our council. I know he was a commander of our commandery. And for those of you that don't know, Kalakaua was the last king of Hawaii. But Lopaka, I'll let you share anything you'd like to share on that.
You know, the really cool thing about builders in Hawaiian culture is if you guys ever get a chance to come here and you visit some of our larger temples, which are for different uses, navigation, ethnobotany, and of course, human sacrifice, you'll be amazed to see with no mortar the exact corners and squares that these temples have. The unusual thing is in each temple, the important seat is placed in the east, you know, and that's not something that's made up in our culture. The reason we felt it was important to face the east to do prayers is because we also believed in a supreme being that came from the east and brought light with it. King David Kalakaua started a society called the Hale Nawa, the Temple of Science. And he was particularly interested, and he was already a 33rd degree Mason at that point, but he was particularly interested in researching angles, if that makes any sense, alignment. And so when he built the Iolani Palace, it was important to him to keep those angles and those alignments. And the reason that is because we have something here in Hawaii called night marchers, and they march on particular nights. And all the old kahuna knew if they didn't have their temples situated in a particular way, so these warriors could go right through those old temples, there'd be trouble. Because if the alignments are off, the warriors would get sort of turned around in the temple and kill all the priests. And so the Iolani Palace happens to be one of those places that's affixed with the front and back doors in alignment. A brother of ours, Doug Crum, is also a docent at the palace, and he talks about how the palace guards, the only way certain people could get in was through a particular kind of handshake or a strange password, which no one knew about, no one could figure out what was going on, but those were all Masonic. And there's several Masonic symbols in and or about the palace as well. You know, the pillars in particular, which happen to number 33, and several parts of the palace on the roof that sort of represent the designs on our Masonic altar in the Blue Lodge. It's pretty fascinating.
Yep. And for those that don't know, Kalakaua was he was the one that commissioned the building of Iolani Palace, which is the only royal residence on U.S. soil. And the very first event that ever took place, public event that ever took place in that palace, was actually a joint installation for Lodge La Progre de la Oceanie and Hawaiian Lodge, installation of their officers. So also, just so in case you're interested, the lodge which Lopaka and I both belong to is haunted. Several years ago, back in 2010-11, we undertook a renovation of that lodge building. And before we started the demolition, we had a Hawaiian priest come in and speak to the ghosts and to let them know what was going to be going on, and that it was okay. And Lopaka, correct me if I misspeak any of this, but it was okay that the workers were going to be there and that they were safe, and to go and stay in a certain area of the lodge while the construction was going on. And then when the construction was over, the priests returned and then told the ghost that it's okay to now return to your usual places of abode within the lodge. There's many ghost stories that come out of our lodge that are very interesting, that you hear from people that are, you know, brothers that are well grounded in reality, but they can all give you stories that they've experienced firsthand of unusual things that happened in our lodge building. Anything you want to add to that, Lopaka?
Could you share with everybody that famous story about the homeless guy who broke in?
No.
Yeah, I think most worshipful Frank Condello, your brother-in-law, was the one who told me about it. But the short story is, I guess a homeless guy broke in to the lodge room upstairs. He was looking for warmth. And when he woke up, there are these guys that he described who were walking in a circle around him, and he broke one of the windows and was screaming for help. And somebody called the police, and they managed to get into the building. And so he's wildly telling the police officers, these guys in funny clothes, dressed in these funny clothes and tuxedos, kept walking in a circle around me and kept getting smaller and smaller. And so he's taken downstairs and he's taken out through the dining hall, and they turned the lights on. And the old dining hall, each of the walls had a bunch of pictures of all the old past masters. And they said the homeless guy looked at those walls with those pictures and said, "Those were the guys. Those were the guys who were walking around me in a circle. That's them. That's them."
Yep. It's a story that's told quite often in our lodge. With that, Lopaka, I know you do live streaming on, is it YouTube or is it on Facebook? It's Facebook Live, yeah?
Yeah, our fan page is Mysteries of Honolulu, and we do a lot of live streaming.
Is it on a regular schedule or?
It's normally on Tuesday nights, called Ghost Stories with Friends. So I have like local celebrities, investigators who have reality shows, but sometimes the subject comes up. The last time somebody asked me, I hear Masons bury their dead under the four corners of the lodge. I don't know if that's a thing. I've never heard it. But if that's true, those must be very, very devoted brothers.
True that. If anybody's interested, please check out Lopaka's live stream. They're very interesting stories. If you ever get to Hawaii, look Brother Lopaka up and jump on one of his ghost tours. They're always an adventure. So with that, does anybody have any questions of Lopaka? I don't see anybody raising their hand or jumping in.
Brother Lopaka, I thank you very much for the stories, very entertaining, and hopefully we get to see more of you and hear more of your stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my honor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lopaka. He may not want me to share this.
Grandmaster?
Yeah, go ahead.
Are the lodges there, and have I set up east-west?
Yes, but well, it depends on the lodge. Some lodges moved into existing buildings that weren't built as lodges. Honolulu Lodge, which is in Makiki, was built for the purpose, and it is situated nearly due east and west. During the renovation, we were I was part of the committee that dealt with the renovation, and I had the idea that we needed to have a way to link the Hawaiiana and masonry together. And one of the ideas that I had that we implemented is to have the constellations in the ceiling to be representative of the constellations that were seen over Hawaii during the building of King Solomon's Temple. And I went to the Bishop Museum where they have a planetarium, and I gave them the historical time frame of the building of King Solomon's Temple. And it's funny because the latitude, I guess it's latitude this way, of Hawaii is actually the same as Jerusalem would be.
Oh.
And so in actuality, the stars that they saw in Hawaii were the same stars that they saw actually during the building of King Solomon's Temple. The architect went to the Bishop Museum. He had the star map printed out for him. And they laid it out on the floor of the lodge room and used lasers to shine it up to the ceiling. And then they installed fiber optics. So our entire ceiling is covered in stars, fiber optic stars, and you can see the pattern. The odd thing, though, is when you look at the constellations, they seem a little off. You can just barely see the North Star on the north side of the lodge room, but it's not directly over, or directly across from the junior warden station. It's a little bit more to the east. And the reason for that is that the building is skewed just a bit, but the star field is situated exactly due east and west.
That's interesting. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
I'd go in there and lay on the floor before lodge, and I'd turn the star field on and all the rest of the lights off, and I'd watch them twinkle, and it was very relaxing. Okay. Any questions about masonry in Hawaii or the council? All the Yorkright meets in the same building that we have been talking about. The chapter council and commandery, to the best of my knowledge, are the only ones that have ever had a reigning monarch to be the head of those bodies in the United States, and possibly anywhere that cryptic masonry is established, and that was David Kalakaua. We had several monarchs that were members and members of the royal family that were members of masonry. There's a lot of famous people that were masons in Hawaii. The inventor of modern baseball, who was A.J. Cartwright, he was a mason in Hawaiian Lodge and is buried in a cemetery up on Nuuanu, I believe.
Yep.
And a lot of people that streets get named after were all Masons. It's a very interesting Masonic history in Hawaii. So if you ever get a chance, definitely go and look for some of the Masonic stuff. If you go to Iolani Palace, they have Kalakaua's Masonic jewels, his past master jewels. They have, I believe, both his Scottish Rite and his commandery swords. And they have the working tools that were used to lay the cornerstone for Iolani Palace, and they're all on display there at the palace. So, okay, with that, I tell you what, I'm going to turn the talking stick over to Bill Snyder for a moment while I take a brief pause for the cause. And Bill, why don't you field some questions?
Oh, absolutely. Anybody have a question for a Deputy General Grand Master besides what's a Deputy General Grand Master?
And I reserve the right to overrule him when I come back.
Absolutely. Is Tom Taylor on?
He should be, Bill.
Okay.
Tom Taylor is on.
Yeah, I was just
And-
going to have you go ahead and ask, like, if you ever grow up to become Deputy General Grand Master in 2023, what are you supposed to do?
Oh, listen, you know, what I wanted to talk about is the General Grand Master's theme this year for the triennial, which is communications, transparency, and innovation. And I think these fireside chats are a way for the General Grand Council to communicate more with the membership and to be transparent in what we're doing. Here's your opportunity to ask us questions, see what we're doing. You know, just keep us informed of what you're doing. I was interested in some of the sidebar chats about junior and senior stewards. That's interesting, but that's, you know, that's something that we need to get out there and hey, this is how we're different, but this is how we're the same. As far as innovation goes, you know, we're not, if we can continue to do the same things we've always been doing, we're going to get the same results. We need to be innovative in how we approach what we're doing. Our landmarks in cryptic masonry are pretty much hard and fast, but I think we have some latitude around that to make us more appealing to younger members. And I encourage people to seek ways to, you know, not think outside the box, but to throw away the box and start doing some things new and different. I think this is what the Grand Master has in mind with his theme. And now that he's back, I can ask him.
Okay. The other thing that we did change about Deputy General Grand Master and the General Grand Principal Conductor of Work is we changed their role in our Cryptic Masons Medical Research Foundation. So Tom will be seen a lot, not just representing General Grand Council, but also representing as the Vice President of CMMRF. And he and I are working on a program for the state chairman for CMMRF, appointed by the Grand Masters of the Grand Councils. But we're working on a way to new ideas, new boxes, shall we say, to use in raising money for CMMRF and making the public aware, as well as members of CMMRF, and the fact that people ought to be giving money to it. The Deputy General Grand Master now serves as the president of that board. So I would say, Tom, we've spent the past 2 weeks organizing a lot of things in CMMRF, and we have quite a ways to go, but we're trying to put a different emphasis on that in terms of the way we approach things, so that state chairman and your grand councils have a key role in what happens in the future. The other thing that we're working on in particular is identifying where we don't have bylaw or a constitutional provision to cover certain things. And so we'll be working with a committee that David Grindle is vice chairman of on constitution and bylaws, and bringing these things to you for your approval in the next couple of years as we go along. As you know, we're planning to meet. Part one of the triennial will be in August of 2021 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And that will be where we can once again meet in person. And we're looking forward to seeing many of you that if we're not able to see you at your state grand council over this next year, we'll see you in Minneapolis. The other thing that I would mention is that Tom is carrying on the tradition of the General Grand Principal Conductor of the work that was set in 2017. When I got in office, I was immediately, I think the next week, I was attending a meeting representing General Grand Council. Tom has already been to a CMMRF annual fundraiser in Indiana, the Ish Sodai event, and he has also attended the Grand York Ride of Maryland. I mention that just to let you know, wherever it's safe to do so, we are trying to get out and visit. And General Grand Master, that's about all I have. And if we spur any questions, we'll take that. I did see that I'm getting some greetings from people. So I will respond to some of those. Thank you.
Bill,
hi.
Did you make a comment about state chairman?
Yes. And did I forget to mention the challenge?
So my question for you is this a new position? I mean, do grand councils have state chairman? Or is this something new?
Well, every grand council has been asked in the past. Sorry. There's a Boston Terrier and a French Bulldog that have invaded the house, and they don't like someone else trying to follow them in, I guess. But the state chairman role is one that every state grand council, every grand master should appoint. They should also, in connection with that, have a CMMRF committee to work with that state chairman and to interact with our good friend Gary Wine and his staff there in Indiana. So this is true around the world. Every grand council can have a state chairman or a country chairman, a nation chairman, if you will. And we're working on that program. So if there's anyone that is not aware, if you're for example, your grand master or grand recorder doesn't know who the current state chairman is, please let them know that they can contact us, and we will be glad to work with them on getting that program going. And as I said, Tom and I giving them some direction on how to do that. And then James, we also have a challenge to all the grand principal conductors of the work to donate $100. This started at North Central. And for all of the deputy grand masters to give $150. And then in turn, for each of those grand officers to challenge their local council officers to give a like amount. And we've already had money coming in from that, from North Central. So we'd love to see everybody try to help us out on that. Charity is not the be all and end all of Freemasonry, but in cryptic Freemasonry, it is certainly an equal part of everything we do. Thank you.
Tom, we got a question from a companion, Brian Ellis, that he's new to the council and he's wondering what would be a good chair to start at. Do you have any thoughts on that?
My favorite chair was conductor of the council, because that's where you have some activity. You don't have a whole lot to say, but you get to see what everybody else is doing, and you start to develop the interest, your interest in what's going on in the council, taking part in some of the programs. That was the chair I enjoyed. Right next to illustrious master, of course, but that's a lousy chair to start in.
Most assuredly. You know, from my perspective, depending upon, you know, the size of your council, how active your council is, how many, you know, do you have a lot of people that are waiting to get in line and that sort of stuff. Don't discount the very vital position of being the guy on the side as well. And something that I've always encouraged all brothers to do in whatever organization they're sitting in is to make sure that you're really present at the meeting, that you're focused on listening to the ritual that is going on. You may have heard it 20, 30 times before, but I've always found that when I'm focused on listening to the ritual, one, you learn the ritual by hearing it over and over and over again, but also you pick up new aspects of the ritual, and your mind will focus on different aspects of it, and it'll raise more questions and that you can ask other people and have discussions about. Not everybody sees their ritual exactly the same way, and it's always very interesting to have those conversations. Does that help you there, Companion Brian?
General Grand Master, there was a question about our travel schedules where some of the grand officers of the grand councils would like to know who's coming in advance. And as you know, Grand Encampment posts a travel list of who's assigned. That is subject to change, of course, by the Grand Master, Grand Encampment. But I was wondering if at some point we couldn't provide something on a fairly secure basis to our grand councils. That may be something that Steve would have to take up with technology, but I personally don't post on Facebook that I'm going to go to New York or New Jersey next week or something like that, because I don't want people to know when I'm away, non-Masons to know when I'm away. But if we can come up with a reasonable way of giving our grand councils, once we get the travel schedule going again, if we can organize that as we do privately, at least among the officers, if we could let the grand councils know who's coming or planning to come, I think they would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't really sat down to discuss a travel schedule, in-person travel schedule. We're kind of handling it ad hoc at the moment. Right, Tom was in Maryland on Friday, wasn't it? Thursday for their sessions, and so we're trying our best to kind of stay close to home and attend those that are having in-person meetings as best we can, but still staying safe as well. Once travel starts to open up again, where we can get on flights, we'll start, setting up. And obviously, if we're given all the registration information, we've been really good about being on Zoom meetings. I have the unfortunate position of having to still work for a living. So I can't always be there in person for meetings that happen during the daytime if a work meeting comes up. But I do try to make all that I can, and I know Bill and Tom also do, as well as Steve. And so we're trying to make as many of the Zoom meetings as we possibly can. I would say that there's probably been more participation in Grand Council sessions by more General Grand officers than there's probably ever been, because we can all get on Zoom and not have to travel. But we're all also looking forward to being able to be there in person. And I know once things start opening up, we'll put a schedule out. Right
General
now,
Master, you have a question from your predecessor.
Go ahead, David.
Comment. I'm not sure which.
Well, actually, what I was going to add to what Bill was saying and what I see, Grand Encampment publishes a general order that says who's traveling where. And if we publish something like that and it goes to the grand recorders and the dais officers, that would take care of some of it, Monty. Yep. But it's something else to do.
Yep. Yeah, historically, for those that are curious about how we've traditionally handled it behind the scenes, is we kind of pass around a spreadsheet of all the different sessions that are coming up for. We usually break it into like every six months or so, and we see who wants to go where uh, most particular, and we try to break it up even amongst all the officers so that we get good coverage, that someone is always there. Sometimes the schedules get changed, but we can definitely get a little better. There's always room for improvement in communication, and so that's definitely something that we'll be working on. And then there is a calendar that's available. It's a Google Calendar that I think Steve is referring to, that will have the schedule on it as well, and that'll be behind a login. Which, Steve, do you want to talk about how they would get access?
Actually, General Grandmaster, we have identified our next volunteer, who's gonna hopefully do the updates to the calendar, and then we're going to go to the same system that we used to have, which is if you're logged in, you can see who is going to be attending as an attribute of that, so it's centralized. And the Google Sheets and the Google Calendars and the G Suite activities are going to remain behind the scenes with the officers, etc. But the public form that will be a login form will have that information, but only again for those who are supposed to. And my understanding of the direction on that is the grand recorders and grand deus officers of each jurisdiction.
Any questions on any of that? Yeah, we are continuing to work. Again, communication, transparency, and innovation are the watchwords for this training, and we're doing everything that we can to improve our communication and make ourselves available. We're we're always available to anyone to reach out to and ask questions of. And so if there's something that you think we should be getting out there and aren't, let us know, and we will do everything we can to make it happen if it's in our power to do.
General Grandmaster? Who clipped him? Okay, who muted you? Okay. General Grandmaster, a question came up, and I'd like to follow up on it. The question, if you don't mind, it's on the calendar. Ryan Winters asked if we were going to update people by mass text. And I wanted to ask if that is something that they want us to look at, because that is something that I have not looked at, but is possible.
Any thoughts on that, companions? Would that be a way that you'd like to see communication happen?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
We'll get on it.
I imagine as things develop, there'll be a certain level of shotgun approach in communication, where we send it through email, send it through text, send it through postings. We rely pretty heavily on our decryption as a way to communicate. If anybody on the meeting now has not subscribed to the decryption, I highly encourage you to. There's a lot of great information and education that gets put out on that. And yes, I agree, Michael Smith, companion Michael Smith, that it should be something that's an opt-in, opt-out of thing for texting. And our Wright Pleasant General Grant Recorder just posted the link for the decryption sign up. If you haven't signed up before, follow that link. Will Highsmith is our master of all things decryption, and he does an outstanding job at keeping that up and herding all of the cats associated with getting the content there. So thank you, Will.
Jack, you can come down.
Hi, Jack.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was muted.
You probably muted me instead. That's what it was.
Well, we won't talk about my fat fingers.
Hey, tell Jack hello for us.
So, does anybody have anything that they want to talk about in general?
General Grandmaster, good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How do I get a login? I'm sorry if I missed that. Apologize. So I get your calendar.
Oh, to the calendar. Go ahead, Steve.
I didn't catch who said that. I apologize, but companions, we stopped. I'm sorry?
Companion notice.
Companion notice?
Ben Geiger. From Florida.
The answer to your question is we stopped when we turned over to the triennial going virtual. We stopped working on a project that is a single sign-on opportunity to converge our platforms. And Will Highsmith was right at the step where he was testing the ability to edit, etc. And all of our entire focus changed to making sure that that could come off right. And as we were getting ready to start in with getting back to the technology projects, we got a call and said, hey, could you help us out with another small project, which we're focused on, and we'll get that done. We are starting the technology committee back up. It's going to be meeting again, and there are different people assigned to it, but Will's been working on that. And when we get that calendar up to date, and like I said, we found we've nominated somebody, but they have not accepted to do the updating to the calendar. And then between Will and John and I, we will be uploading people's logins and then distributing them. Probably one jurisdiction at a time until we see that 3 are working appropriately. And then after that, it'll be everybody. And to give you a projected date, we want this in place by the end of the year. That will give us enough time. The grand sessions, et cetera, start up in February, and people can log on. We can do some job aids as to how to navigate, et cetera, and how to get that information.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Bill's asking questions that he already knows the answer to, but he asked if General Grant Council was going to be hosting the virtual General Grant Chapter Triennial meeting that's on November 21st. And the answer is yes, we are. We are committed to the idea of York Rite unity, and we offered and it was accepted that we exercise our resources and really I can't sing enough praises for the guys that set these meetings up, namely Steve and John and James, and the work that they do. And I'm on weekly meetings with the team to go over all of the aspects of the upcoming meeting, and we have done everything that we can to make their triennial to be, if not as good, but better than our triennial was, leveraging the lessons we learned through the mistakes and challenges that we faced in doing our first virtual triennial, which I thought was a very big success. We had, how many people were on that? 400 or 500 people?
Our top, I believe our tallest count was 523 or 523 people
Yeah,
participating in the meeting.
correct.
And if you didn't happen to catch it, and you want to torture yourself for 5 hours, the meeting is on our YouTube channel, Cryptic Masons International. It's the entire meeting is recorded, but most importantly, there is a presentation by Dr. Michael Murphy, who is our chair for CMMRF at Indiana University. And Steve is quickly posting links to everything. But if you go to to that link for the triennial, it'll ask you to register or whatever it is on YouTube to join the group. And there'll be lots of videos, including this session here will be out there for future. So any companions that are interested in finding out what happened at this meeting, please point them to that so they can get a idea of what was done, and then hopefully they can join us in future meetings. I do intend to have these meetings every month, as long as there's interest in them. I do plan on having a guest speaker at every meeting to give a presentation on cryptic history, Masonic education, things of interest to Masons at the beginning of every meeting, and then go into the general discussions. One of the companions that I'm interested in having do a presentation, he does a lot of research in Brazil, Alan Silvestri. He was on earlier, but he was feeling tired. He and his entire family are actually recovering from COVID, and he was feeling a little wore out, so he had to leave early, as did Lopaka. He had to, I think he was on KP duty, and he had to fix the family lunch. So, anyway, so, that's kind of the format that we're going to have. We'll probably also pick a program or some aspect of what the General Grand Council is doing, and kind of give a focused update on things that are going around with that. And then, again, answer general questions. And again, I really encourage you to, if you have a question, it doesn't have to be for any of us. It could be, someone that is from another jurisdiction. If somebody is interested in an aspect of cryptic masonry from, say, Brazil, we have Rafael on here, who is our regional deputy for Brazil. We've got companions from Mexico, Portugal, just, all over the place. And so it is an opportunity for everybody to get to know and learn different aspects of cryptic masonry. So I highly encourage you to do that. Panama is on here, Louisiana, but they're okay in Louisiana. So yeah, lots of good companions on here. They're all, I'm sure, very happy. Peru, good to see you here. So yeah, are there any other questions? And Steve, yes, I will give you a shout. I have to say, this has been one of the quietest and well-behaved Masonic get-togethers I've ever been to. Lots of kudos to all the companions.
Well, if there's a lull, then I'll take this, if it's all right with you, to answer a couple, well, actually reiterate something that one said and answer a question real quick.
Go ahead.
In the spirit of your great unity, the triennial.org is the link that was sent a little bit ago. The General Grand chapter session is open to any companion, any Royal Arch Mason. So Brian, yes, you are welcome to register. We are focusing on voting delegates first, which means that you may not get your confirmation until after the 4th or 5th of November, or you might get a confirmation that says, please join us on the YouTube channel, because it'll stream live as well. But we're making sure that the voting delegates, and I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but there are 850 plus voting delegates for General Grand chapter, and the plus is because he's filtering the ones that still have paperwork to turn in or whatnot. In these international organizations, in case you were ever wondering, our count is 1,163 voting delegates for the General Grand Council of Cryptic Masons International. Pretty sure the General Grand chapter is about the same. Thanks, Monty. General Grand Master.
Any other questions? Bill, Tom, do you have anything you want to put out?
I'd like to say something. Stephen, I need to congratulate him on a good job he's doing. I've known him a while, and I think he's doing an excellent job.
Okay.
Thanks, Gary. Actually, it's being a part of a great team, but thank you.
Thank you, Companion Ackridge, for the kind comment, and all the companions that have been posting comments. It's much appreciated. I'm glad you guys took the time to be here. This is, as those of you that read my my first message as General Grand Master, I made a point of letting everybody know that I really hate the right. Steve is on me all the time about needing to write this or that. And this is what I'm choosing as my primary method to communicate with the craft. I am a person that just likes to, as we say in Hawaii, likes to talk story. I like things to be informal. I think that there's less opportunity for confusion, particularly with my writing ability. I can be frequently misunderstood, or my point doesn't get across the way I want it. So this is a method that I think is well suited for me in general, and as time progresses, I think everybody will be a little more comfortable. I'm not one that gets overly hung up on titles and stuff, so just don't call me late for dinner. Whatever way you want to communicate with me, I'm more than happy to accept. Tom posted to share the program with other people in your jurisdictions. I think that would be great. Companion Kavala, I'm going to be tapping on you to do a talk here in the near future. I want you to explain some of the wonderful things that you showed me in my trip to Portugal right before the COVID shutdown occurred.
Okay, just give me a heads up and I will talk about it.
Absolutely. So, you know, I do want to have guest speakers from some of our outside the U.S. companions, because again, there's some really great knowledge that's out there, and it will show us just how broad the impact of masonry is across the world. It's a way for us to travel without having to go anywhere. Let's see. Is there anything really important, Steve, that I'm forgetting to put out?
I don't believe so. The only thing that we didn't get back to was the differences in jurisdictions, and I think that would be a great way to start next time.
I saw where Reed issued a retraction earlier on the confusion on the council and other organizations. So thank you for that, sir. So I'm gonna ask one last time if anybody has any questions, and if not, we're gonna end a little early. It's always great to have the gift of time back. I know how much everybody loves to be in Masonic meetings, but it also is good to spend time with your family as well, particularly on a Sunday. But I do thank everybody for being here. So last call, any questions, final questions from anyone? Well, with that, I wish you all a safe and healthy week and month ahead, and hope to see you again on the next Fireside Chat. And before we close, Tom, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
No, I don't have anything. I think that covered everything well.
Bill?
Nothing to add, General Grandmaster. We'll save it for another meeting.
Okay, and last call, Steve?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so companions, please stay safe. Thank you again for joining. My fraternal love to all of you, and we will see you again on the 4th Sunday of November. And until then, be safe.
Mahalo, General Grandmaster.
Mahalo, sir. Aloha.
Can you say hi to Tom?
Hey, Bill Snyder. Hang on a second. I want to swing my camera around and show you something.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Oh, no. Everybody, turn your video off, quick.
Yeah, well, I was just,
Whoa. What is that? Is that a puppy dog?
No, that's the kitten.
No.
I have a cane Corsican for a cane Corso for a bodyguard this week.
Oh,
Hi, Jack.
Can you say hi?
All right.
well, I'll talk to you tomorrow or Tuesday. Talk to you later.
Yes, sir. See you later.
Bye.
happy birthday, Jack.
Happy birthday.